My name is Beth Watkins. I am the Assistant Director for Career Development at the Ohio State University Moritz College of Law. So we are located in the US, in Columbus, Ohio, and the university itself is very big. It's about 50 to 60,000 students, including the undergrad and the grad schools. The law school itself has about 600 students in it. And so that's over 3 classes. So that's 200 students a class roughly.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, about what drove you to go into law?
Yeah, I think back in the day, I knew that I was good at reading and writing, and I knew I wanted to have a professional career. And I actually entered law school at a time when there were not quite so many women who went into the field yet. It was predominantly a male-driven field. And I just knew that I wanted to continue on and to do something that was highly professional and maybe open some doors. So that's really what led me to get there. I think for students now, I would say there are a lot better reasons and more diverse reasons to want to go to law school, but that was my story. Was there another question, Ralph? I mean, if I don't answer part, just go back.
You are fine.
Okay.
So what were some of the things that you studied in high school, or like a lot of these kids are in middle school and high school? What kind of things would you recommend that they study to kind of gear them into that thought process of thinking like a lawyer?
Okay, I think all of the things that you're currently doing, which are learning about what it takes to go to college, are really important. So in general, a nice broad array of courses that are going to make you think hard, make you learn to analyze. So sometimes that's even just maybe science. You're learning to look at things and to understand what they do, and to think logically. But the primary skills that you do in law school itself are going to be lots of reading and lots of thinking and then lots of writing, okay? And the writing is usually trying to persuade somebody maybe to adopt your position. Sometimes if you're writing for a court, it's more general. You're going to be looking at 2 sides, and then you're going to be reading a lot of case law in used to be very thick books. Now it's all online. But you are going to put it together into a reasoned argument in that. Now, as far as what you study in college, it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of law school. You can study anything in college that interests you and that you feel like you will do well in because you're interested, and then you can go to law school with any degree.
So do you mind if we let the students ask you a couple of questions?
Happy to.
Okay, so we have Michaela. She had a really interesting question.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask.
Hello.
Hi, Michaela.
I was wondering, since at the time it was predominantly male, how did it feel being a woman in that scene? Did they ever look down on you?
Oh gosh, boy, that's a question. And we still struggle with that a little bit in this country. We're seeing a whole lot of new awareness about gender and about race and about where everybody fits with respect to equality and equity in this country. So I would say it is still an ongoing conversation. Within law school, I probably felt it less. And I would say I worked in a large law firm after I graduated. Although everybody was very kind, they were nice, I was allowed to do good work. There were some barriers in trying to accomplish my life with having a family and being able to work and still being allowed to do good work and have enough time to be at home. So I actually, there was a point at which I left the practice of law for a period of years and came back to working in law after my children were grown. I think better.
we have a question from Ariel, Mr. Hernandez. So Mr. Hernandez, I'm unmuting you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Watkins.
Good morning.
I know, Beth.
Beth, that's okay. I will answer to any of it.
Well, I just want to introduce my group. These are my group, 8 girls, 1 male.
Nice.
I'm outnumbered, so you see there is women empowerment in my group here.
Well, and I will tell you, I don't know if you know see my calendar, but
I see it.
in the back. That was a gift from my son. He knows how I feel. Yeah.
So I take a lot of pride. This is my second, this is the opening group that started our School for the Law program. That's why it's so tiny. My second
Nice.
group is coming behind, and they are 25. And they are much
Nice.
younger. They're still learning the basics. But anyway, getting to my question. So with this group, we're obviously much more advanced when it comes to law. Again, no one is ever perfect. You never learn the entire thing, but we're learning. What suggestion can you give for them? Can you give to them if they're really still not sure on what they want to do in regards to the law field? I know that's a very generic question, very
Oh,
multiple millions of answers could be come out of it. But I do have students, obviously, the intention of my program is not to make lawyers. It's
yeah.
to teach the entire legal field. So let's say, obviously, we're working on, as academic, as a big giant company, we're working on the students gaining multiple career fields out of this academy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
those of you that are in my group that still are confused that you think it's a law program, what suggestions can you give them so they're generically focused on school about law, but still being open-minded to take other careers in the field? I mean, what
Oh,
tips?
gosh. I will tell you, law is probably one of the easiest things to be open-minded for a lot of years, okay? First of all, like I said, I'm looking at fundamental things that are going to be helpful to you if you choose to go to law school, but they could take you in any other direction at all. I ended up being a business major when I was in undergrad, and then in undergrad decided I wanted to go to law school. So that part, you just do well as students. Getting into law school is competitive and they try to take top students. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect, okay? It just means that you start now in working toward good grades, learning to trust yourself and your judgment, trying to become good thinkers. You do not have to be good public speakers to be lawyers. I think that a lot of times, especially here in the US, people think of lawyers as what they've seen on TV, working in courtrooms. And boy, there's all kinds of lawyers. It's a very, very diverse type of career. You could be working with corporations to help them purchase assets or to merge companies. You can be working for corporations or for employees where someone maybe has been discharged from their job and they feel that they have been discriminated against. Some people have lawyers on the side of the employee, some have them on the side of the employer, and you try to get to the truth or get to a reasonable settlement and a place where everybody is happy with the result. Learning to negotiate, learning to listen to people, those are very, very important skills generally. You have categories where you're likely to work in law at one point. So watch the world around you and see where people are working and just try to kind of understand how the world works. So in one side, you have the private sector. Those are people who are often in law firms. And you might have these gigantic law firms that have more than 500 attorneys and they're representing corporations in their businesses. You also have smaller law firms that might be representing individuals, either if they've gotten in trouble in some way and need a lawyer to go to court with them, with divorces perhaps, or buying a house. Sometimes people hire a lawyer for that, so you can be very people-centered. That's called the private sector. Then you would have the public interest sector. And sometimes those are going to be government lawyers. So you might be employed by the state and the state might be your client. So say you have we have a hospital at Ohio State University. And if somebody believes that their doctor has injured them and files a lawsuit against their doctor for an injury, medical malpractice, it would be someone at the Attorney General's office in the state of Ohio, because it's a public university, who would defend that in court. People who work for the government would also be prosecutors and defenders. Those are kind of who you would see on TV most of the time. There are also a lot of agencies in state government and local government that need to have advice to make sure that they're doing things correctly. And then you have what I think of as a subset of that public interest group. And those are often nonprofits, okay? So you have nonprofits who are working to advance people's civil rights. And they do that in many different arenas. Some of them would be environmental rights. Some of them would be women's health rights. Some of them could be anti-discrimination, LGBTQ, just a variety of things where people need representation to try to change the law, both at the legislature level and through the courts, determining that things are unconstitutional. So anything that interests you right now, you can stay with it. We have music majors, people who studied music, and actually music is really quite a good field because there's a mathematical precision to it, and you're teaching your brain, you're building neurological pathways, okay? So you just shoot high with your grades and your achievement and getting to know people, but just be good thinkers and good people. It's that easy.
So we have a question from one of the students. They wanted to know, with all of the advancements in technology that have been going on lately, do you see that this having an effect on the future of law as far as different subsets of law?
That is a great question. We are already seeing some disruption in the practice of law with respect to artificial intelligence. One of the jobs that I had before I started working back at Ohio State, I worked with young people who received DACA, for people who came as young children to the United States and their parents brought them and they did not have authority to come into the country. And that is an immigration issue where they give them a special credential. People are starting to develop, okay, immigration in the United States often requires a lawyer to try to be able to move forward. It's just kind of complicated. And so through artificial intelligence, we had nonprofits who put together some very user-friendly programs where a student or a young person who was trying to get DACA could actually fill out their forms themselves because they simplified it. So we do see that happening. We see the traditional law firm model is changing. We see right now, we've all had to learn how to use Zoom very easily, and that has changed things as well. What I'm hopeful of is that it will make law more accessible to more people, because right now legal services are still pretty expensive in the United States, and that causes a problem with access to the courts. And we don't want people to have to be wealthy to be able to afford lawyers. And I think that technology is helping to make that more available.
So one last question before we let you go. You being an employee of the second largest university in the United States.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, right. What kind of advice would you give to these kids, whether they want to go into law or another field? What kind of advice would you give to them as they go off into the world and kind of discover what they want to do professionally?
Oh, wow. For people who want to go to law school, the one thing that I think I sometimes see that I always want, okay, trust yourself. That's what I want you to take away from this. Sometimes people who want to go to law school or who are students who are looking at achieving sometimes put enormous pressures on themselves to be perfect. We're humans. We can't be perfect. Learn to be resilient. Learn to learn. And we learn by making mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to have a perfect path in order to get into a competitive field. Know that if it's what you want to do, there's always another path to get there, okay? So I guess that's the thing. I keep trying new things and enjoy what you do. You should not have to hate it. This is a long life. And even if you perceive one of these highly competitive fields to be what you want, find the way to do it that matches your values and your goals.